For this video, I'm going to want you to put on your skepticism glasses. I want you to ask questions to yourself of the things that you hear and hold off on passing judgment until you get a sufficient amount of evidence. Because sometimes we might hear things from people who we like or from people who have good opinions, and we might draw conclusions that they are good people, but that is not necessarily true. I want us, not only in this case, but for every single person you listen to online, you consume the teaching of, the social commentary, whatever, me included, hold off on passing judgment, even if they say something or even a few things you like. Because if we start following people just because they say stuff that we like, that can lead us to following some very bad people, especially in most cases because most people are not willing to do, or they just don't know that it's necessary to do deeper digging into the things that people have said. Something to think about. So today, in this video, we are going to be talking about Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes, if you have any sense, you probably don't know much about Nick Fuentes. I didn't know a lot about him until recently. He has kind of been brought more into the public eye over the past couple of weeks because of his commentary on the Charlie Kirk assassination. And so a lot of people are like, who is this Nick Fuentes guy? He seems to be kind of a controversial figure, but I've heard his comments about the Charlie Kirk assassination, and he sounds like a really good guy. And so what I want to do is play the video, which sounds very good, about his opinions on the Charlie Kirk assassination and on Charlie Kirk recently. And then I want us to think a little bit more deeply and hear some other things that he has said in the past to try to educate us about where this guy really is coming from. Because if there is a good, strong, solid conservative voice, I think we should be following and we should be supporting them. But also in this time of great trepidation and persecution of conservatives in the world, where it is celebrated by an enormous chunk of the population of our nation when a large conservative figure is assassinated, we also need to realize that there are going to be some people who want to try to manipulate people like us for really bad reasons, because they want to steal us as their followers, and they want to use the deaths of good people as opportunities to do that. And so we need to ask ourselves, where are these people coming from? Are these people really good people, or do they have some kind of ulterior motive? And so a lot of the content that I will be covering in this video is highly inappropriate for children. And so I don't recommend listening to this with children around. And I also, I will have to heavily edit the audio of a lot of these clips because the language is really bad. So let's dig into it. This first video is probably going to sound pretty good. So let's listen.
Charlie Kirk never had a kind word to say about me in his life. Now that he has died, I'll say some kind words about him. Although I didn't agree with him.
Notice it starts off with a subtle dig, but we'll see how this goes.
I considered him a part of the political establishment. In many ways, I considered him part of the problem. In spite of that, it is undeniable that he was a towering figure in American conservatism. It's undeniable. He was ambitious. He was a hard worker. He did things I cannot do. A lot of people said after his passing, I saw some people make oblique references to it. They said, well, if Charlie Kirk was assassinated, now the far right will step up. I don't know that there's anyone that could fill his shoes. I don't know that there's anyone that can do what he did.
Now that's an interesting comment, because a lot of people after this have started discussing who is capable of filling Charlie Kirk's shoes. Now, it's interesting that anybody would ask that, because normally we don't ask that when big important figures die. Like when Billy Graham died, for example, nobody thought, who's going to fill the shoes of Billy Graham? Who's going to be the next guy that we get to pick to listen to as America's pastor, or, whatever it is. But for some reason, I mean, maybe some people ask that, but for some reason, people are asking that question now. And I think, here's my theory, and you can draw your own conclusions, that this idea is being intentionally planted into people to think who is going to be the person to take Charlie Kirk's massive audience, which is massive. It's massive. Something to think about. Is Nick Fuentes trying to take Charlie Kirk's audience? And if he is, that could not be a bad thing. If he is trying to take Charlie Kirk's audience, is he a good recipient? Did he honor Charlie Kirk during Charlie Kirk's life? It seems, he might have had disagreements with Charlie Kirk, but he seems to be saying really good stuff here about him. He's complimentary. He's honoring Charlie Kirk's life and death. So another question we need to ask ourselves is, if a person with a large platform is actually worthy of inheriting of those followers, then now following somebody else? Those are the questions we need to ask ourselves. Let's continue.
He died at 31 years old and left a legacy that many people could not achieve in many lifetimes. He hosted a show 3 hours a day. He went and faced down his enemies in debate. He would take on almost any challengers. I say almost because he wouldn't debate me, of course, but nevertheless,
Why? That's another question we should ask ourselves, which will be answered a little bit later. Why would Charlie Kirk refuse to debate Nick Fuentes, if that's even true?
Debate anybody, anywhere, stare them down, and people don't know how difficult that is. He would sit there for hours on any subject, and then he would return home from the command center and direct the largest youth organization, the most ambitious project in conservative politics maybe ever, and he did it all before the age of 31. An absolutely brilliant, sharp, fierce warrior for his values and his beliefs. And as I said, I disagreed with them strongly. I'll make no bones about that, and that hasn't changed. But you have to admire that this was a fighter, this was a worker, this was a champion, and above all else, maybe this is what I respected about him the most. We had our disagreements. Where we did agree is that he would go to these college campuses and proclaim the name of Jesus Christ. And ultimately, that is why he was killed.
Okay, we'll go ahead and stop there. So they have disagreements, and also, besides that, it sounds like this was a really great sort of eulogy for Charlie Kirk. But we don't know who's going to take his spot. Probably nobody can truly take his spot. But who knows? Maybe Nick Fuentes can take his spot. The person who posted this says Nick Fuentes didn't agree with Charlie Kirk, but he definitely knows how effective Charlie was. Here he shares some kind words. This is how politics should be. We have different views, but we still respect each other's opinions and achievements. God bless you, Charlie Kirk. Another person says, Nick Fuentes' first stream after Charlie Kirk's assassination was a better eulogy than all these theatrical speeches combined, referring to the big group of speeches that took place after the assassination. Another person says, it still feels unreal to me how large Nick Fuentes' following has gotten. He is going to become the figure Charlie Kirk was meant to be, but never did. So there is absolutely this interesting movement of pushing people towards Nick Fuentes as a kind of replacement for Charlie Kirk. That's undeniable. It's all over the internet. Even our least favorite pastor, Joel Webbin, says right now, Nick J. Fuentes is speaking to close to 200,000 live listeners. His demeanor and rhetoric is superb. Presidential, you might say. Something that a lot of people said about Charlie Kirk was that he could become president one day. And then now, professing Christians, people who call themselves Christians, people who call themselves pastors, are saying the same thing. Maybe Nick Fuentes is the guy, not only to replace Charlie Kirk, but to become president one day. He is the ideal person who we should be following, who will lead us into this new golden age of America. Interesting. So let's learn a little bit more about Nick Fuentes. He's a pretty young guy. He's had this show for many years that he puts on, this talk show. And I want to show you some of the things that Nick Fuentes has been saying on his show, particularly about Charlie Kirk. And ask yourself if this is someone who was sincere in the clip that we just heard. all of those honorable words to Charlie Kirk, I want you to ask yourself, was he sincere? Was that serious? Let's listen to some clips.
Charlie Kirk cannot call himself a Christian anymore. Sorry, you forfeited that. I do not want to hear, and you cannot allow Charlie Kirk to go to one more public event, one more question and answer, one more ask me anything, without being protested, without being shouted down, without being interrogated about this. This guy goes around from campus to campus in the most artificial and phony and fake way, talking about, oh, God made me very blessed that I control $500 million. Oh, I'm so blessed. I'm so rich and I'm so blessed. And oh, God's been so good to me. I'm such a Christian. Oh, the Lord gave me the Sabbath. I take Saturday off. You sit there and call yourself a Christian and then you make excuses for the genocide of 2 million people? Seriously? You stand there and purport to be an evangelist like Billy Graham? Oh, you're the latest Billy Graham? You're our generation's America's pastor? Why? Because you said the right words? Because you said, God bless, God bless. God bless, my friend. Oh, I rebuke the devil in the name of Jesus. And then you go around from campus to campus making excuses for a famine?
These are not the words of somebody who appreciates the Christian witness of Charlie Kirk. Now, why would he have changed his tune so much?
Whether he chooses to confront me or not, whether he has dignity and honor or not, it's just a matter of time. My ideas are already there. I've already impregnated your organization. I took Turning Point USA.
Now, here he's talking about, again, Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA, and about how his ideas have already infiltrated Turning Point USA, which seems to be kind of saying that his mission is entirely contrary to Turning Point USA and how he is trying to manipulate and conquer these other opposing organizations that he completely disagrees with. Interestingly, if you have the theory that, I mean, if hypothetically he was a bad guy and his plan were to infiltrate Charlie Kirk's following and take it for himself, this would actually be a very good evidence of him exactly revealing what his plan is. Interesting. Let's hear.
Whether he chooses to confront me or not, whether he has dignity and honor or not, it's just a matter of time. My ideas are already there. I've already impregnated your organization. I took Turning Point USA and I f***ed it. I took your organization, I took your baby, Turning Point USA, and I f***ed it. And I've been f***ing it.
Well, that's interesting. He seems to not like Turning Point USA. He seems to not like Charlie Kirk. He doesn't even think that Charlie Kirk was a real Christian, and yet he said those question mark honorable words about Charlie Kirk, or were they fake? Were they fake words just to try to get a hold of Charlie Kirk's following? That's interesting. He also seems to be using some very crass language. Hopefully I censored those out in the final edit. If I missed one, I'm sorry. But he seems to be using some really crass language about sex. So I wonder what he thinks about marriage. Let's see.
I want to drink it straight from the tap. I want it raw. I don't want to wait a moment. Right when the milk is good, I want to start drinking the milk. Same thing goes with women. I don't want to turn 30 and find some 20-year-old, 29-year-old woman that I have something in common with, and it's like, hey, properly aged, like wine. Women don't age like wine, they age like milk. They don't age like wine. That's not how their hormones work. That's not how they work. Yeah, I gotta find my 16-year-old wife. Probably when I turn 30 or something. Because here's the thing, I don't want to be like, let's say I get married to an 18-year-old now. 6-year age difference. When I turn 40, she's going to be 34. Ew. What if I'm 30 and she's 16? 14-year age difference. When I'm 50, she'll be 36. When I'm 40, she'll be 26. Now we're talking here. Now we're cooking with gas. Now you can see an alternative vision for how things could be. I want a 16-year-old that's untouched, pristine. untouched, uncorrupted, innocent. That's what we all want. And all 16-year-olds want an older guy who's like capable and strong and everything to sweep them off their feet. That's what everybody wants.
All right. That in America is what we call pedophilia. That's awful. It's also something, interestingly, I've made the connection between this kind of quote-unquote right-wing identitarianism that Nick Fuentes, hopefully you can realize now, represents. And it's not actually right-wing. And the channel Right Wing Watch, which I'm not actually a fan of, evidently posted this, but it is an atrocious clip that's worth sharing because this depicts his ideas of marriage. And he's not married, obviously, Nick Fuentes. He obviously has very poor opinions about marriage, but it doesn't stop there. There's actually more. Speaking of this fake right-wing identitarianism that seems to praise Hitler recently, here's something that Nick Fuentes has said about Hitler.
Was a pedophile and kind of a pagan. It's like, well, he was also really f***ing cool. So, time to grow up. We're not children anymore. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right, boys? Am I right? Let's go. He was also really f***ing cool. And any boy knows that. Anybody that watches these videos where he's rolling down the street and stuff, it's like, this guy's awesome. This guy's cool.
Adolf Hitler, one of the worst human beings in all of history, is cool because of the way he rolls down the street. Golly. Hopefully you can see that he's just getting worse and worse. He has absolutely no moral compass. His conscience is seared completely. He hates truth. He hates justice. He hates biblical Christianity. He hates evangelism. He hates Jesus. And this last video that I want to share is just a contrast between him and Charlie Kirk and the ways that they approach certain issues. So I want to view this video just because I think it's pretty important. So let's listen. Let's listen to him contrasted with Charlie Kirk, kind of back and forth. This is a really good video that somebody put together.
This is a white country. Want to know why? It was established by white people, founded by white people, built by white people. White people settled the continent. And up until very recently, almost exclusively white people lived here. That's why.
If you go back.
Okay, so let's pause there. I want to comment on this. You could say that about a lot of different categories of things, and it's like the conclusion that he's drawing from the fact that most white people made America, and so therefore it should stay mostly white people. That's kind of the argument that he's making. Now, let's just say we wanted to follow this terrible logic, and we wanted to apply it to something like Protestantism. The vast majority of the founders were Protestant. The vast majority of people in America, just up until recently, were Protestant. Very few of the original colonies actually even had Catholicism legal as a religion for anybody. Maryland did, but very few others. And so we could say, why not professing Catholics? Why don't they just stay out of America? Let's only have white professing Protestants be Americans, and then get rid of people like Nick Fuentes. Ironically, his skin might be white, but look, his last name is Fuentes. His ancestors aren't even from America. His name is Spanish. How hypocritical and obnoxious. But here's somebody, interestingly enough, pushing the same kind of argument that only white people are true Americans to Charlie Kirk at one of his events. And let's see how Charlie Kirk responds to this.
To the original founding fathers, they intended this to be a European nation for white men of good stock and character.
Can you show me where in the United States Constitution it says that?
Yes.
It wasn't in the Constitution.
It wasn't in the Constitution because they didn't believe it.
Right.
The founding...
Yes. Yeah, listen to how the audience reacts. They absolutely know Charlie is right. They want to shame this guy out of existence. It's disgusting to think such a stupid, idiotic thing. The only reason that people think things like this is because they want to implant their own ideology onto other people. That is hypocrisy, and it is one of the most evil possible things that we can do. To say, oh look, I'm going to pretend that this guy in the past believes this in order to push my evil agenda. And that's exactly what Nick Fuentes is doing. That's exactly what a lot of people are doing, and what a lot of the mentally ill, vulnerable, stupid young men who follow people like Nick Fuentes are doing. They have serious problems. He is not a good person to follow. Let's see what Charlie Kirk says about this.
The phrase "e pluribus unum" mean?
Why is that relevant?
Because
E
it was on
pluribus unum.
every founding
The
document
founding
and
fathers
presidential
wrote
seal
a
from our
litany of
founding,
documents
which means
stating
out
they
of
believe
many,
this country should
one.
be a
You,
European-
sir.
E pluribus unum was one of the most fundamental principles of the founding of America. From many, one. From many places, from many races, from many ethnicities, we make one. Americans can have any skin color. They can be from any place. Even the founders, even the people who founded America and originally came to the colonies were from all over Europe. America, I mean, who cares that their skin is white? And even amongst Europe, there were slight tinges of different skin color. So like, how specific do we want to get with skin color here? I've talked about this before in videos, but how specific do we want to get with skin color here? Like, if you're slightly darker or lighter than, like, what color on the hex chart are we looking at? What do we consider white people and white culture? Where do we draw the line? We can't. And if we can't, their entire argument completely falls apart. And then some people say, well, it's Europeans. Why Europeans? Where does it say any of that in any of the founding documents? It doesn't. And that idea is fundamentally not only wrong and not only stupid and not only immoral, but it is fundamentally un-American. And the people who are pushing this idea to say, actually, it is truly American to be racist, and it's truly American to say that only the people who I think Americans are Americans, those are the people who are actually anti-American. Those people are drawing very close to domestic terrorism because they are trying to tear apart the very founding principles of America itself. This is serious. And this is exactly what people like Nick Fuentes are doing. This is exactly what the people knowingly or unknowingly who follow Nick Fuentes and are trying to push his platform are doing. And then they're stupid enough, if they actually follow him for a long amount of time, and to know better that he has hated Charlie Kirk. He didn't only, like he said in the original clip, I disagree with Charlie Kirk on some things, but I agree on the fact that he is a Christian and he has pushed, he's evangelized in the name of Jesus on college campuses. That's a disgusting thing to say because Nick Fuentes doesn't even think Charlie Kirk is a Christian. Unbelievably hypocritical. And many of his followers, they know this, and they're pushing him anyway because they support him. And they're saying like, oh, look at all the wonderful things he's saying about Charlie Kirk. This is a sham. This is a sham, and people are falling for it. Do not fall for it. And don't fall for the people who are pushing him or supporting him, because as you can see now, if you have more than 2 brain cells to knock together, he is an evil, lost dude who desperately needs Jesus Christ and a lot of other things.
And your ideology is not conservative. It is right-wing, identitarian. It has no place in the conservative movement, my friend. Get out of line.
Yeah, Charlie Kirk hates this. You don't see him angry much, but this is one thing that he got angry about. This quote-unquote right, I don't even consider them right-wing, so I maybe would disagree with Charlie Kirk there. They call themselves right-wing. That's all it is. I've talked about this in a lot of videos before. They call themselves right-wing, but I don't think they have any right-wing values whatsoever. People like Nick Fuentes, obviously. They hate America. They love collectivism. They're essentially Marxist. They're much more compatible with leftism than they are with traditional right-wing values. But it's un-American. It has no place in the conservative movement. It's pure evil. Evil has no place in movements that care about truth. Charlie is absolutely right. And that's why I think he got so angry at this here, and it's why it makes me angry, because these people are infiltrating a good movement, and they are dismantling it from the inside.
Get out of line. USA, USA, USA.
You acknowledge that your point of view is fundamentally anti-American. From the founding fathers.
Now this is somebody arguing with Nick Fuentes on a chat on X, on a, what are they called, Spaces. So let's listen to what Nick Fuentes says. Somebody says, Nick, you understand that your view is completely un-American, right?
There's the framers,
100%. Americanism is a heresy in the Catholic Church. You know that if you listen to anything.
So Nick Fuentes just says, yes, I know my position is un-American. Americanism is a heresy according to the Catholic Church. So, okay, so now, by his own admission, we know that he's calling himself American. He's saying he loves America. He's saying he's patriotic, but he also admits to people that he hates America, that Americanism is a heresy. What? And this guy, people, fake pastors and people professing to be Christians have the audacity to say that this person can replace Charlie Kirk in his view of Christ, and even as a strong political figure who represents American ideology. The only thing Nick Fuentes represents is the desire to destroy and dismantle America from the inside out, and they have to be stopped. And the best news is they're going to be stopped by themselves. If they just talk, if you realize the things that they say, they will defeat themselves, because inconsistent ideologies always fail. They cannot stand because they are built on lies. Nick Fuentes' ideology is built on lies, and anybody who follows him is consuming his lies.
Okay, so why the f*** are you even in this country? Why not go live in Rome? Or why be in the United States and try to change this into some theocratic regime when that's not fundamentally what the country is about?
We want to make it better.
Overtly saying that you want to run it as a theocratic regime, that you want religion and God to be the number one thing we answer to and not the Constitution? Yes.
As I said, I believe America's the greatest.
Now, ironically, let's ask ourselves, is Nick Fuentes' behavior consistent with the Bible? Is what he really wants to make America more Christian? Obviously not. Obviously not.
This country in the history of the world, I believe the Constitution is the greatest political document ever written. The Constitution was not written for the times, it was written to stand the test of time. Because despite how technology continues to advance, human beings stay exactly the same. We are self-centered, broken by nature, envious, narcissistic individuals that will always try to serve our self-interest. The Founding Fathers realized that there was this pattern, so they developed a system of government that would decentralize the evil as far as possible and try to have the most representation imaginable. That's why the Constitution is the greatest political document ever written.
I don't want to get...
That was Charlie Kirk's response, and now we're going to be talking about marriage again. Let's see what Nick Fuentes thinks about marriage. Does he want to marry a 16-year-old girl? Or, you know, what are, that seemed to be more joking, but this seems a little more sincere. Although, you know, if a person builds a platform on lies, we know that we can't trust a single thing that they say. And so this is where I want you to put on your skepticism glasses, because you can't say this is what Nick Fuentes believes, because he contradicts himself at every single turn. We should only be trusting consistent people, and people who have proven themselves to be consistent over a very long period of time. Those are the voices that you should be listening to. I strive as hard as I possibly can for consistency, but Nick Fuentes contradicts himself at every possible turn. But let's see what else he believes about marriage.
Married. What are we gonna do, Chad? It's absolutely cooked. I just wish I could marry myself, you know? I just wish I could marry me. But I can't have kids with me, you know?
And I can tell you I'm super blessed. I have the best.
Another thing to note is in one of Nick Fuentes' streams, he was caught watching homosexual pornography. That's another thing worth thinking about. He might very well be homosexual. He's also not married. Yikes. Okay, let's see what Charlie Kirk thinks about marriage in response.
Life in the world, we have an amazing life. Building a family is the coolest thing ever. And my prayer for all of you is that you one day can do that.
The straightest thing you could do is to never have sex. And everyone knows that's true.
The greatest joy I've ever had is coming home to my little daughter running up to my leg. There's nothing that even comes close to it. Not flying on Air Force One, meeting with presidents. That's all, that pales in comparison to your little girl coming up and squeezing your leg.
Raise your right hand. All right.
That's the biblical position on marriage. The Bible says, get married. We should be being fruitful and multiplying. And when people can't, this is what people say about the left, whenever the left is not fruitful, and everybody desires a legacy. And so the way the left gets their legacy is by stealing yours. That's why they work on stealing your children. That's why they push so hard to do what they do in public schools, to indoctrinate your children into anti-biblical and anti-American worldviews. It is also what people like Nick Fuentes do. They are fruitless, and so the only way that they can succeed and proliferate themselves is by stealing vulnerable, mentally ill, angry young people. That's the only way that they can succeed, because no woman in her right mind would want to marry Nick Fuentes. No woman in their right mind.
Everybody raise your right hand. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I will kill, rape, and die for Nicholas J. Fuentes.
The young men that are lost, and if any young man is listening to this right now, like stop watching porn, stop, smoking weed, stop drinking endlessly. Find yourself back to church. That will reorient your life.
I agree.
And do what the church tells you to do, right? Find a woman, marry her, provide, have more kids than you can afford. That's my advice for young men.
Yes.
Don't play the victim, even though you legitimately can play the victim card on everything we've said.
Agree.
The mindset of a victim is parasitic to your soul.
Excellent. Beautiful, beautiful advice. Amazing. It is parasitic to your soul. The kind of victimhood that makes you want to be angry and follow people who incite that anger in you even worse is poisonous. It is parasitic. You will get worse and worse and worse and create a hell for yourself in your own mind. Somebody asked Charlie Kirk about this kind of ideology that comes from people like Nick Fuentes, and Nick Fuentes in the very first clip he shared said, Charlie doesn't really have any good words for me, but I'm going to say some good words about Charlie Kirk, and then proceeds to say a lot of horrible things about Charlie Kirk, and then insincere good things, which aren't good at all if they're insincere. But this is what Charlie Kirk believes about this movement that Nick Fuentes is pushing. And then ask yourself, if people like Nick Fuentes and his followers and people who share the same evil, wicked ideology are worthy of picking up Charlie Kirk's following. Ask yourself.
Thank you for coming, Charlie. And I had a quick question about anti-Semitism online. Another question here they asked about Candace Owens. And, I'm a big fan of you. I was a big fan of her. But she's obviously been going down.
Yeah, and anti-Semitism isn't... there is such a thing as a fake anti-Semitism. I have been accused many times of being anti-Semitic just because I hate dispensationalism, right? But there is such a thing of saying the Jews are not necessarily God's chosen people, and we shouldn't necessarily agree and support every evil decision another nation did, regardless of who they are, regardless of what they call themselves starting in 1949, whatever they are. And also, we should love our enemies, and also we should love our neighbors, and also we should want what is best for every nation, and we shouldn't go out of our way to hate or blame another nation or another group of people for all of our problems, like BLM. We shouldn't become Marxists because we don't like another country or another group of people. So you can actually believe both of those things at the same time. You can say, I don't believe Israel, modern-day Israel is the same thing as biblical Israel. And you can also say, we should also, love and support our allies and love our enemies and pray for those who persecute us and resist people when they make evil choices and support them when they make good ones, right? It's easy. It's simple. It's basic Christianity, right? So let's see what Charlie Kirk says. So the point is, there is fake anti-Semitism, but then there is actual, real anti-Semitism, and it's the kind of thing that people like Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens has been pushing over the past. Well, Nick Fuentes a long period of time, Candace Owens a little more recently.
On this anti-Semitic bent. And through her, I'm kind of finding out about these other characters online, like Nick Fuentes. I'm sure you've heard of him. And these people, they've been active for a long time, and it seems like they've just been ignored, which is working, but now they're kind of surging in popularity. And as someone who, I enjoy watching your debates, are they people you'd be willing to engage with and maybe shut them down in a way through a debate or something like that?
Well, I mean, I'm going to debate Candace. But no, look, I'll debate anybody that shows up at our campus events first and foremost. But I do want to take what you say and extrapolate that there is a corner of the internet of people that want to point and blame the Jews for all their problems. Everybody, this is demonic and it's from the pit of hell. And it should not be tolerated. Period. When you go to
Now, by the way, Charlie Kirk has a much more sympathetic view of the nation of Israel, of the modern day nation of Israel, than I do. However, what he's saying is completely true here.
The problem of an entire generation that has economic resentment, they don't own anything, they're not getting married, they're not having children, they're depressed, they're anxious, they're staring at their screens all day long. And all of a sudden, your extrapolation of all that is, well, it's the Jews' fault. That is sloppy and shallow thinking. And not only that, they say, oh, it's the Jews' fault. Okay, let's kind of play this out. Well, tuberculosis, that used to kill about 1 billion people. You know, it's a group of Jewish scientists that came up with the antibiotic that cured tuberculosis. How about CPR, the MRI machine? You know, there's over 500 million lives that were saved over the last 50 years because of people that were Jewish scientists that were working on things. They'll never say thank you to the Jews, but they'll always say shame on the Jews. It's weird how that works. And finally, they always blame the Jews for stuff. Jewish people are an ethnicity. So therefore, definitionally, you have people that are secular, orthodox, religious, that are all over the spectrum. You're trying to blame an entire ethnicity for a singular problem. Hold on, let's take a step back here. Instead of that, what could you possibly do in your own personal life to improve your own state of being? If you are blaming 0.02% of the world's population for all of your problems, that is not going to be good for your soul. It's not good for your psychology. It's not good for your future in any way, shape, or form. And so I would just say this, that any young person that goes into this hyper online brain rot, you are serving yourself over to your own demise. You are serving yourself into a suicide mission that will not make you happier and not make you healthier. Instead, here's what your attitude should be. Your attitude should be like, I can't own stuff, I got it, can't own a home, I'm not getting married, I don't know who to date. I said, wow, the challenges are immense. I'm going to now overcome all those challenges and go on an adventure. I'm going to prove everyone wrong. I'm now not going to be a victim. I'm going to be a victor. I'm going to dig deep. This is still a great country. This is a free country. I'm going to use my agency. I'm going to use my ability. And I'm not just going to go point in the corner and be like, I'm overweight because of the Jews. Women don't want to date me because of the Jews. How about this? As Jordan Peterson would say, sit up straight with your shoulders back. Follow the rules for life, make yourself interesting, learn something new every single day, and instead of pointing at a small group of people and engaging in this brain rot, become a better person. You'll be a happier and healthier, more joyful and productive person by your life.
Charlie Kirk's words speak for themselves. I don't think I have anything to add to that.